Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon channel. Today I will show you guys how to make the Nameless Horror that I made out of green stuff. I hope you guys like it. If you do, please like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting us on Patreon. Now, green stuff is a double component epoxy material. It's pretty sticky, so when you work with it, remember to put some Vaseline or water on your tools. So when I started, I put some Vaseline on this plastic surface and I spread some green stuff over it. I made some small balls out of green stuff and I put them randomly on the surface. These will be made to create the eyeballs for some of the Nameless Horror's eyes. Now, when you work with green stuff, remember that you should let it cure a bit before you start crafting with it. Otherwise, it'll be a bit too malleable and sticky, and it'll take the texture from your fingerprints too easily as you work with it, which will be kind of annoying because you'll be trying to give it a specific texture which isn't your fingerprints. Now, to make the eyes, as I said, I use these small balls as the eyeballs, and I take these small lengths of green stuff to make the eyelids. I just put them around the balls, and then using this small burnisher, I push them into place and texture them from small strips into thin skin-like texture. Once I have the eyes done, I take another small strip of green stuff. I spread it over the non-sticky surface and I tear a small hole in it. This hole is going to be the base for the mouth cavity for one of the creature's mouths. I then roll out some small lengths of green stuff to make teeth, and I roll them on one side to taper them so they'll be tooth shaped. And using the burnisher, I just push them into place. Try and have teeth of different shapes and sizes, because this is supposed to be a chaos creature and shouldn't be too evenly shaped. Now, once the teeth are in place, I take this long strip of green stuff and I put it over the base of the teeth. You want the strip to cover the base and a bit over, so that when you push it down, it will seem as if the teeth are growing out of the monster's gums. Now, I use the burnisher to push it down and spread it around the base, and then I make indentations around each tooth, giving the impression that each tooth is growing independently out of the gums, just like in their own mouths, where each tooth's base is protruding a bit out of the gums. Sorry. Now take your time doing this because you want it to seem real. Make sure that each tooth is accentuated and textured. I also use the burnisher to taper the bottom part of each tooth gum pair to make it really look like their individual teeth. Now, working like this, I build up small pieces of the Nameless Horror, and I apply them on this small plastic cup, connecting them to each other using freshly mixed green stuff, which is very sticky. I just use the burnisher to really gently pry this piece off of the non-sticky material, and then over the freshly mixed green stuff to just stick it into place. Be careful when you do this not to ruin the texture that you've worked hard to make by pressing a bit too hard with your fingers. Just keep working, creating more and more bits like these till you can completely cover the cup, or as much of it as you want. When this is done, you're going to have a circle like this one here, all full of teeth and eyes, and ready for the next phase, which is creating the great maw of the beast. Now I wanted this creature to be able to swallow a character whole, so I made sure that a character would fit inside. Now to make the Great Maw, what I needed to do was build up the creature a bit higher and create a surface to which I could adhere fresh teeth to the monster. So I rolled up some more green stuff and I started building it up. Here you can see that the freshly mixed green stuff is really sticky and sticks really well to the cured parts. If you're making smaller bits or bits you don't want to be as flexible, just let them cure like 20 minutes before starting to work on them. Now to make the teeth for the Great Maw, I just roll out some medium width lengths of green stuff, cut them, and then taper the edges to make the teeth. I then use the clay shapers to texture the added green stuff to seem more fleshy. I do this by poking and pulling. So you poke a hole or an indent into the green stuff and then pull it around a bit just to make it seem more organic and alive. I let the teeth cure for roughly 20 minutes just to be sure they're firm enough to work with, and then I start pushing them into the and then I push them to the creature's maw itself, making sure to work fast enough so that the inner gums are still sticky enough to receive these new teeth. There is no specific way in which I decided where to put the teeth. I just spread them around, making sure to keep them uneven and varied in height and length and width, because this maw is supposed to seem chaotic and weird. Now, if your teeth aren't sticking, it's either because they've cured too long or because you've used too much Vaseline working on them. Once I'm done putting teeth on the maw itself, I take the excess teeth that I have left and I just start adding random teeth in weird places all across the critter itself. This is supposed to make it seem as if the teeth are just growing out of any which place, no rhyme or reason. It makes the creature seem more chaotic and weird and cancerous, which is awesome. Now remember that once you've put a tooth in a random place, you have to still create the gum structure around its base. And you do it the same way we did, I'm showing here. Just put a strip of green stuff around the tooth, sorry. Pull it over the base and down, and then just poke mark the gum to make it seem more organic. Now that the green stuff is cured, I can work on the gums for the Great Maw itself. I just roll out some long lengths of green stuff, and I apply them to the base of the teeth. It's important, and I can't stress this enough, to put the green stuff over the base of the tooth, not the bottom, but over, not at the bottom, but over the base. It needs to cover a part of the teeth to make it seem as if the tooth is growing out of the gums. And it needs to be both in front of the tooth from the outside and from the inside of the maw. So once I've put it over the base, I take the burnisher and I press between the teeth, as you can see here, and down. So I push the green stuff down and around each tooth, making it seem as if the tooth is growing out of the gum. Now to give it a really fleshy look, I poke and pull with the burnisher, and I make sure my poke marks aren't even or regularly spread. They need to be completely organic, and not completely organic, but completely random. Now I do this also to cover the connection bits with the tentacles. Now this is where a curved burnisher comes really handy to get it between the teeth and the inside. So I took a strip of green stuff, put it inside the maw, and I use it to create the inner gum structure. Doing it the same way I built the inner gum structure for the outside of the gum. Now, if you see that instead of being molded around the tooth, the green stuff sticks and tears, it means that you don't have enough Vaseline or water on your tools. What I do is I just put some Vaseline on the back of my hand, and I use it as a depository of Vaseline, which I can use whenever I need. Now, to create the tentacles, what I did is that I put some Vaseline over one of my clay shapers, created a roll of green stuff, twisted it to give it a more rooty or tentacle look, and then I twisted it around the handle of the clay molder, clay shaper, so that when it cures, I can easily take it off of the handle, and it'll have a nice curly shape. I did this a couple times, and also just bent some other pieces of tentacle and put them aside to cure for a couple of hours. When they were done, it was time to apply the tentacles. I took a Sharpie and marked exactly where I wanted the tentacles to be on the monster. Now again, there's no set way to do this. I just found places that seemed to need the tentacles, places where the texture wasn't quite how I wanted it, and were also where I didn't have a bunch of eyes that I could obscure. I took another roll of freshly mixed and sticky green stuff. I put them aside, cut them up, and put them aside. They're going to be used as my connecting glue or material. Put the tentacles where I wanted them, and then just fix them in place with a small piece of green stuff to start with, and then just cover the entire spot with the bigger bit of green stuff. Again, just roll it up a bit and around the base of the tentacle. Then take your burnisher, put some Vaseline on it, push it around and down and over. Now as you move it over the green stuff, it'll smooth it out and make it seem to blend with the tentacle. You want to do this before putting in the texture. So you blend the material into the build and the tentacle, and then you texture it. Don't go the other way around, otherwise you'll just do twice the work. Now you can also use the burnisher to make sure the green stuff that you've just put on doesn't obscure the texture that you want to keep, like eyes or mouthpieces that you've put in. And then again, I use the push and pull method again to create the fleshy look. And I do this again and again, putting a bit of green stuff to start with in order to connect the tentacle where I wanted, and then a bigger piece of fresh green stuff to cover the base and meld it with the rest of the monster. Then taking the burnisher and just pushing the green stuff over the tentacle's base and then texturing it. And that's it, the sculpting of this creature is done, and I'll be off to painting it soon. Join us next week here for the painting. If you've enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe, and consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support helps me continue doing the things that I love, and I appreciate it wholeheartedly. So, with a great shout out to all my awesome Patreon supporters, I wish you all a good week full of awesome times and adventure. And I'll catch you on the next one.